The forest moon of Verdania shook as another bioship passed. Overhead, Dr. Kethara pressed her feathered face against the observation window and watched the massive organic vessel drift through the purple sky like a diseased whale. Black spores fell from its belly, and wherever they touched, the silver-leaf trees began to wither and die. "Doctor, we have maybe 6 hours before they find us," said her assistant Veltar. His bright blue feathers were dull with fear and exhaustion. They had been hiding in the underground research station for 3 days now, watching their beautiful world slowly die above them. Kethara turned away from the window. Around her, the last members of her research team worked frantically to destroy their data. They could not let the Vorthak Empire get their hands on the genetic research they had spent decades developing. The insectoid invaders were already too powerful. They consumed entire species and added their biological knowledge to their own growing strength. "The quantum communicator is still working," reported Genshi from her station. Her orange feathers were singed from the explosion that had destroyed half their equipment 2 days ago. "But I do not know who we could call for help. The Coalition Navy is gone. The Council worlds have surrendered. There is no one left." Kethara walked to the central console where dozens of screens showed the destruction across their star system. 12 worlds had already fallen to the Vorthak bioships. Billions of Zilani were dead or worse, converted into mindless drones to serve the Overmind. Their peaceful civilization had lasted for thousands of years, but it was ending in mere weeks. "Wait," Kethara said suddenly. She rushed to a storage unit and began pulling out old data crystals. 3 years ago we received that strange signal. The one from the Deathworld. Veltar's head tilted in confusion. "You mean the transmission from that impossible planet? The one where nothing should be able to live?" "Yes, exactly." Kethara found the crystal she was looking for and plugged it into the main computer. The screen filled with data about a distant star system. The third planet orbits very close to a yellow star. The surface gravity is twice what most species can survive. The atmosphere is filled with poison gas. Massive storms rage across the continents. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions happen constantly. "And you think someone actually lives there?" Genshi asked. The computer model said it was impossible. "But we detected artificial signals," Kethara insisted. "Radio waves in mathematical patterns. Someone was definitely there, and they were trying to communicate. They called themselves humans." Another tremor shook the station as a bioship landed somewhere above them. Through the ceiling, they could hear the wet, slithering sounds of Vorthak drones beginning to search the forest. The creatures moved like giant insects, but their bodies were constantly changing and adapting. They could reshape themselves to fit through any space or grow new limbs as needed. "Even if these humans exist," Veltar said quietly, "what could they do? If they live on such a terrible world, they are probably primitive. They might not even have space travel." "Maybe," Kethara agreed. "But think about it. If someone could survive on a planet like that, what kind of beings would they be? What would they have to become to live in such a place?" She began typing commands into the quantum communicator. The device was experimental technology that could send messages across vast distances instantly. They had built it to contact other research stations, but it had the power to reach much further. "I am setting the coordinates for the human homeworld," she announced. "Even if they cannot help us, someone should know what happened here. Someone should know that the Zilani tried to fight." The sounds from above were getting closer. Heavy footsteps echoed through the station as Vorthak warriors began descending into the underground levels. These were not the worker drones, but the true soldiers of the Empire. Each one was the size of a small building, with armor that could change shape and weapons that grew from their own bodies. "Doctor, they have found the main entrance," whispered Veltar. "We have maybe minutes." Kethara finished entering the message into the communicator. She attached files showing the beauty of Zilani civilization, their crystal cities floating among the clouds, their art galleries filled with sculptures made from living metal, their children learning to fly before they could walk. Then she added images of the Vorthak invasion, the bioships that blotted out the sun, the drones that consumed everything in their path, the empty husks of worlds left behind. "Unknown beings of the Death World," she spoke into the recorder. "My name is Kethara of the Zilani people. We are dying. Our worlds are being consumed by an empire that devours entire species. We have nowhere left to run and no one left to call for help. We detected your signals years ago, and we know you exist on a world that would kill most of us in moments. Perhaps that means you are strong enough to survive what we could not. We do not ask you to risk yourselves for strangers. We only ask that you remember us. The station's lights flickered as something massive pressed against the outer doors. The metal began to groan and buckle. Through the security cameras, they could see a Vorthak warrior reshaping its arm into a giant cutting tool. Acid dripped from the blade as it began slicing through the reinforced barriers. "Sending now," Genshi announced. The quantum communicator hummed with power as it prepared to launch the message across the galaxy. Wait, Kethara added one more thing to the transmission. She included the coordinates of every Vorthak stronghold they had identified, along with detailed scans of the bioships and their weaknesses. If anyone receives this, the Empire must be stopped. They will not be satisfied with our worlds. They will keep consuming until there is nothing left. The outer door exploded inward. A massive shape filled the doorway, something between an insect and a nightmare. The Vorthak warrior had too many eyes, and they all glowed with an evil intelligence. Its body was covered in armor that moved like living skin, and weapons sprouted from its arms like deadly flowers. "Message sent," Genshi reported, just as the warrior spotted them. Kethara hit the final switch, activating the station's self-destruct sequence. All around them, the computers began wiping their data and overloading their power cells. "For the Coalition," she whispered. The Vorthak warrior lunged forward, but the explosion was already beginning. Fire filled the station as years of research dissolved into heat and light. The creature's scream was cut short as the ceiling collapsed, burying everything under tons of stone and metal. Far above, other bioships continued their work of consuming Verdania. They did not care about one small research station, or the few scientists who had chosen to die rather than surrender. The Overmind was focused on bigger prizes: the shipyards around the gas giant Corvus, the industrial colonies of the Helix Nebula. But in the ruins of the station, a small quantum transmitter continued broadcasting. It sent Kethara's desperate message racing across the void between stars, carrying with it the last hope of a dying species. The signal traveled faster than light itself, piercing through the darkness toward a distant yellow star where impossible creatures lived on an impossible world. The message flew through space while the Zelani died, carrying their story toward Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. She stood on the observation deck of Luna Command, watching Earth turn slowly below her. The blue and white marble looked peaceful from space, but Sarah knew better. Down there, hurricanes raged across the oceans. Earthquakes split continents apart, and volcanoes painted the sky with ash. It was a beautiful, terrible world that had tried to kill humanity for millions of years. "Admiral, we have something unusual," called Lieutenant Morrison from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission on the deep space array. It's not from any human source." Sarah set down her coffee and walked to the main command center. Around her, the night shift crew was handling the usual business of protecting Earth's orbital space. Cargo ships moved between the Luna colonies and the asteroid mining stations. Defense satellites swept the system for threats. Everything was normal until the message arrived. "Put it on the main screen," Sarah ordered. The display filled with images that took her breath away. She saw cities made of crystal floating in purple skies. She watched beings with colorful feathers fly between buildings that looked like they were grown rather than built. Gardens filled with impossible plants stretched across entire continents. It was the most beautiful civilization she had ever seen. Then the images changed. Dark ships that looked like living creatures descended from the stars. The crystal cities cracked and fell. The flying beings tried to flee but were caught by spider-like monsters that moved with terrible purpose. The gardens withered and died as black spores poisoned the soil. "Dear God," whispered Morrison. "What is this?" A voice began speaking over the images. The words were in an alien language, but the computer was already working to translate them. Sarah listened as Dr. Kethara told her story. How the Vorthak Empire had destroyed world after world. How entire species had been consumed or converted into slaves. How the last survivors were facing extinction. "We detected your signals years ago," the voice continued, "and we know you exist on a world that would kill most of us in moments. Perhaps that means you are strong enough to survive what we could not." The transmission ended with coordinates showing the location of enemy strongholds and detailed scans of their bioships. Then came the final words. "If anyone receives this, the Empire must be stopped. They will not be satisfied with our worlds. They will keep consuming until there is nothing left." The command center fell silent. Sarah stared at the screen as the images repeated. The beauty of the Zilani civilization, the horror of their destruction, the desperate hope in that final message, ma'am. Morrison said quietly. What do we do? Sarah thought about humanity's history. For thousands of years, her species had fought wars over everything. Land, resources, ideas, pride. They had built weapons that could crack planets and ships that could cross between stars. Earth had made them hard, and the constant struggle for survival had made them creative. Other species might call them primitive or violent, but humans knew how to fight. Get me the president, she said. And contact Fleet Command. I want every available ship ready for deployment within 6 hours. Admiral, with respect, we don't know anything about these aliens. Morrison pointed out. They could be lying. This could be a trap. Sarah looked at the images again. She saw children with bright feathers learning to fly. She saw families building homes among the clouds. She saw artists creating beauty that would make humans weep with joy. Then she saw it all burning while creatures that should not exist destroyed everything good in the galaxy. Lieutenant, when someone asks for help, we help them. She said simply, that's what humans do. Within hours, the greatest fleet in human history was assembling in Earth orbit. The massive dreadnought UES Defiant served as the flagship, its armor thick enough to survive planet-killing weapons, and its guns powerful enough to crack moons. Around it gathered destroyers, frigates, carriers, and assault ships. Each vessel was designed for war because humanity had never known lasting peace. President Martinez appeared on the communication screen from Geneva. Admiral Chen, I've reviewed the alien transmission. The Security Council has voted unanimously. You have full authorization to render assistance to these Zilani people. Thank you, sir. We won't let them down. Sarah, the president said more quietly. These Vorthak creatures sound like nothing we've ever faced. Are you sure about this? Sarah looked out at her fleet. She saw ships built in the orbital yards above Earth, crewed by men and women from every nation and background. They came from a world where hurricanes could flatten cities, where earthquakes could swallow entire populations, where winter could freeze armies to death, and summer could bake deserts into glass. They were the children of a planet that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. Sir, we're humans, she said. Impossible is what we do. The fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system where the jump engines could safely engage. Captain Torres reported from the Marine assault ship UES Vengeance that his troops were ready for ground combat. Commander Kim announced that the stealth frigates were prepared for reconnaissance missions. Wing Leader Jackson confirmed that the fighter squadrons were loaded with the newest plasma-tip missiles. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Sarah addressed the entire fleet over the communication system. Men and women of Earth were about to enter humanity's first interstellar war. We're going to fight for people we've never met, on worlds we've never seen against an enemy that has conquered half the galaxy. She paused, thinking about the desperate voice in that transmission. These Zilani people sent us their story because they thought we might be strong enough to help them. They looked at our world, our terrible, beautiful, impossible world, and they hoped that anyone who could survive here might be able to fight the monsters that destroyed their civilization. The jump engines began charging, filling space around the fleet with ripples of twisted energy. Earth fell away behind them as they prepared to cross the void between stars. I don't know what we're going to find out there, Sarah continued, but I know who we are. We're the people who looked at a world full of disasters and decided to call it home. We're the species that turned hurricanes into poetry and volcanoes into power sources. We've been fighting for survival since we climbed down from the trees, and we've gotten very good at it. The fleet reached the jump point. Space itself began to fold around them as the FTL drives engaged. These Vorthak think they can consume everything in their path, Sarah said. They're about to learn what happens when they threaten our friends. Let's go show them what Deathworlders do to bullies. The human fleet disappeared in a flash of twisted light, racing across the galaxy toward a desperate battle that would decide the fate of countless species. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, a blue marble covered in storms and life, having just sent its children to war among the stars. The human fleet dropped out of FTL drive at the edge of the Zilani system and found hell waiting for them. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the tactical display fill with enemy contacts. Massive bioships moved between the planets like hungry whales, each one the size of a small moon. They pulsed with organic light as they fed on the worlds below them. My God, whispered Commander Park, the ship's tactical officer. There are hundreds of them. Sarah studied the display with cold eyes. 3 Zelani worlds were already dark, their surfaces covered with the black growth that meant the Vorthak had finished consuming them. 2 more planets showed the red glow of active feeding, bioships attached to their surfaces like parasites, slowly draining away all life. Where are the defenders? Asked Captain Torres over the communication link from his assault ship. There. Sarah pointed to a small cluster of contacts near the 4th planet. 23 ships. That's all that's left of their fleet. The surviving Zelani vessels were beautiful even in their desperation. They looked like they had been grown rather than built, with smooth curves and elegant lines that spoke of a peaceful people who had never expected to fight for their lives. They darted between the bioships like tiny birds attacking eagles, their energy weapons leaving bright streaks across the darkness. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Zelani ship, reported the communications officer. Put it through. A hologram appeared on the bridge, a tall being with bright green feathers and large, intelligent eyes. Despite the fear and exhaustion in his expression, he carried himself with dignity. Unknown vessels, this is Fleet Commander Jektal of the Zelani Coalition. I do not know who you are, but you must leave this system immediately. The Vorthak Empire has already claimed these worlds. There is nothing you can do to help us. Sarah stepped forward so the alien commander could see her clearly. Commander Jektal, I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We received Dr. Cathara's message. We're here to help. The alien's feathers rippled with shock. You received, but how? Cathara's station was destroyed days ago. And you are the humans? The ones from the Death World? That's right. And we're about to show these Vorthak what happens when they pick on our friends. Sarah turned to her crew. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have alien civilians under attack by hostile forces. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show them what humans do to bullies. The human fleet spread out into attack formation. The Defiant led the charge, its massive railguns already targeting the nearest bioship. Behind it came the destroyers and frigates, their missile tubes loaded with nuclear warheads. The stealth ships vanished from sensors as they activated their cloaking systems. The carriers launched their fighter squadrons in waves of deadly metal. Targeting solutions locked, reported. Commander Park, all weapons. Ready. Fire. The Defiant's main guns spoke. With the voice of thunder, projectiles moving at incredible speed slammed into the bioship's organic hull, punching holes through armor that had evolved over millions of years. Nuclear missiles followed, their explosions lighting up space like new stars. The bioship convulsed as the human weapons tore into it. Unlike the elegant energy beams of the Zelani, human weapons were designed for one purpose: to destroy things as completely as possible. The creature's hull cracked and split, leaking fluids that froze instantly in the vacuum of space. Around the fleet, other human ships opened fire. Captain Torres led a squadron of assault ships against a cluster of smaller biovessels, his Marines ready to board anything that survived the initial barrage. Wing Leader Jackson's fighters darted between the enemy ships, their plasma missiles leaving trails of destruction. Direct hit on target Alpha, Park reported with satisfaction. The bioship is breaking apart. But even as they celebrated their first victory, the humans learned their enemy's terrible secret. The damaged bioship began to change. Its wounds closed as new tissue grew to replace what had been destroyed. The armor around the impact sites became thicker and harder. When the next nuclear missile struck, it barely left a mark. Admiral, they're adapting, Torres reported from his ship. The bioships are changing their structure to resist our weapons. Sarah watched in growing alarm as the entire Vorthak fleet began to evolve in real time. The creatures that had been vulnerable to human firepower just minutes before were now shrugging off attacks that should have destroyed them. Analysis shows the bioships are sharing information, Commander Park announced. When one learns to resist a weapon type, they all gain that resistance within minutes. Then we change tactics, Sarah decided. All ships switch to rapid-fire mode. Don't give them time to adapt. Keep hitting them with different weapon types. The human fleet adjusted its strategy. Instead of focusing their fire on single targets, they spread their attacks across multiple bioships. Railguns switched to explosive shells, then to armor-piercing rounds, then to plasma bolts. Missile launchers fired conventional warheads, then nuclear, then antimatter charges. For a while, the tactic worked. The bioships could not adapt fast enough to counter the constantly changing attacks. Several more enemy vessels were destroyed, their organic hulls unable to evolve quickly enough to survive. But the Vorthak had other weapons. Smaller bioships began launching clouds of spores into space. The tiny organisms sought out human vessels and began eating through their hulls. Other creatures fired streams of acid that dissolved armor plating in seconds. Hull breach on Deck 7, came the damage report from the Defiance engineering section. The spores are spreading through the ventilation system. Seal all affected areas and vent them to space, Sarah ordered. Deploy the emergency atmospheric scrubbers. The battle became a nightmare of adaptation and counter-adaptation. The humans used their creativity and tactical flexibility to stay one step ahead of the evolving bioships. When the enemy adapted to railguns, they switched to lasers. When acid attacks proved effective, they changed their hull composition. When spores tried to infest their ships, they filled the corridors with poison gas. Commander Jektol watched the battle from his damaged ship with growing amazement. How do they fight like this? He asked his crew. They change their tactics faster than our computers can track. It is like they are thinking differently from moment to moment. His tactical officer, a young Zelani named Silta, studied the human ships with fascination. Sir, I think that is exactly what they are doing. Look at their communication patterns. Each ship commander is making independent decisions, but somehow they coordinate perfectly. Impossible. No species can function without central planning. Without unity of thought, there is only chaos. But the humans were proving that chaos could be a weapon. Each ship captain fought differently, forcing the bioships to adapt to dozens of unique strategies simultaneously. When one human tactic failed, 10 others took its place. The Vorthak hive mind, designed for efficiency and unity, could not keep up with the creative madness of human warfare. Admiral, Torres called over the communication link, I'm preparing to board one of the damaged bioships. My Marines are suited up and ready. Negative, Captain. We don't know what kind of defenses they have inside those things. Ma'am, with respect, my boys are from Earth. We've been fighting monsters since before we had fire. A little alien horror isn't going to stop us. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The battle was hanging in the balance. They were winning, but slowly and more Vorthak reinforcements were arriving from the outer system. Permission granted, Captain. Show them what Marines can do. Torres's assault ship latched onto the hull of a wounded bioship like a parasite finding a host. Cutting charges blew holes through the organic armor, and human Marines poured into the alien vessel. What they found inside would change the course of the war. The bioship was not just a vessel, it was a living creature, and they were now fighting inside its body. Captain Marcus Torres had seen many terrible things in his 20 years as a Marine, but nothing had prepared him for the inside of a Vorthak bioship. The corridors were not built. They were grown with walls that pulsed like the inside of a heart. Strange organs hung from the ceiling, dripping fluids that hissed when they hit the floor. The air itself seemed alive, thick with spores that tried to crawl into his suit's filters. Stay close and watch your seals, he told his squad over the radio. This place is trying to eat us just by breathing. Sergeant Williams, his second-in-command, swept the corridor ahead with her scanner. Sir, I'm reading massive bioelectrical activity. Whatever runs this ship, it's big and it's angry. The Marines moved deeper into the vessel, their boots squelching on the organic floor. Their suits were sealed against chemical attack, but Torres could feel the alien ship studying them through sensors he could not see. The walls seemed to watch them as they passed. Contact ahead, called Private Chen from point position. 4 hostiles approaching. The Vorthak drones rounded the corner and Torres got his first close look at the enemy. They were nightmares made flesh. Part insect, part machine, part something else entirely. Their bodies changed shape as he watched, growing new limbs and weapons as they needed them. Multiple eyes fixed on the human intruders with predatory intelligence. Open fire! The corridor filled with gunfire as the Marines engaged the drones. Human weapons designed to kill other humans on Earth's battlefields proved devastatingly effective against alien biology. The drones staggered under the assault, their adaptive armor unable to evolve fast enough to stop the barrage. But as the creatures died, something unexpected happened. Torres felt a pressure in his head, like someone trying to push their way into his thoughts. Images flashed through his mind, not his own memories, but alien ones. He saw vast hive cities where millions of drones worked in perfect unity. He felt the cold satisfaction of the overmind as it consumed entire worlds. "Sir, something's trying to get in my head," Williams reported, her voice tight with strain. "Mine too," added Chen. "It feels like it's trying to control me." Torres realized what was happening. The dying drones were releasing biospores designed to infiltrate enemy minds. This was how the Vorthak had conquered so many species, by turning their enemies into slaves of the hive mind. But the aliens had made a critical mistake. They expected to find ordered thoughts, the kind of unified consciousness that every other intelligent species possessed. Instead, they found chaos. Torres's mind was a storm of memories, emotions, and random thoughts. He remembered his childhood in Detroit, his first kiss, the taste of his grandmother's cooking, the fear he felt during his first combat mission, his anger at losing friends in battle, his love for his daughter back on Earth. Human consciousness was not a single stream but a raging river with 1,000 tributaries. The alien spores tried to impose order on the chaos and failed completely. Torres felt them recoiling in confusion and pain. How could these creatures function with such disordered thoughts? How did they coordinate without unity? How did they make decisions without consensus? "Get out of my head," Torres growled, focusing his anger like a weapon. The pressure vanished instantly. Around him, his Marines were having similar experiences. Each human mind was unique, filled with individual dreams and fears that no hive intelligence could comprehend. The spores that were meant to enslave them instead fled in terror. "Sir, I think we broke something," Williams reported with grim satisfaction. "The bio readings are going crazy." Torres looked around and realized she was right. The ship's organic walls were convulsing, and strange fluids leaked from cracks in the ceiling. Whatever controlled this vessel was having problems. "Keep moving," he ordered. "Let's find the brain of this thing." They pushed deeper into the bioship, following corridors that led toward the massive energy signature Williams had detected. More drones tried to stop them, but the creatures seemed confused and uncoordinated. Some attacked in the wrong directions. Others stood motionless as if waiting for orders that never came. The hive mind is having trouble controlling them, Torres realized. Our thoughts are like poison to their system. They reached the ship's core, a vast chamber filled with organic machinery that pulsed with alien life. At the center hung a brain the size of a house, connected to the ship's systems by thousands of nerve cables. It was beautiful and horrible at the same time, a perfect fusion of biology and technology. "That's the ship's consciousness," Williams breathed. "It's like the whole vessel is one giant creature." The brain noticed their presence and tried to defend itself. Tendrils whipped through the air, seeking to capture the intruders. Security drones emerged from hidden alcoves, their weapons already adapting to counter human firearms. But Torres had learned something important during their journey through the ship. He opened his mind to the chaos of human thought and projected it outward like a weapon. Memories of Earth's wars flooded through the connection. The trenches of World War I, the beaches of Normandy, the jungles of Vietnam, the cities of Iraq. Images of human creativity mixed with human violence in a symphony of beautiful madness. The alien brain recoiled as if struck by lightning. It had spent millions of years connected to the ordered thoughts of the hive mind. The chaotic individuality of human consciousness was like acid to its neural pathways. "Now," Torres shouted, "hit it with everything!" The Marines opened fire on the exposed brain tissue. Explosions rocked the chamber as grenades detonated against the organic walls. The ship's death scream echoed through the bio-neural network, causing spasms throughout the entire Vorthak fleet. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiant, Admiral Chen watched in amazement as enemy bioships throughout the system suddenly began convulsing. Several of the smaller vessels simply died, their organic hulls going dark as their controlling intelligences failed. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from all ships," Commander Park announced. "The bioships are malfunctioning. They're not adapting to our weapons anymore." "What did Torres do in there?" Sarah wondered aloud. The answer came over the communication link from the assault ship. "Admiral, this is Captain Torres. We've discovered something important about these creatures. Their hive mind can't handle human thoughts. Our consciousness is like a virus to their system." "Explain, Captain." "They're used to ordered minds, ma'am. Single thoughts shared by entire species. But humans think differently. We're chaotic, individual, unpredictable. When they try to read our minds, it breaks their neural networks." Sarah smiled grimly. "Humanity's greatest weakness, their inability to think as one people. had become their greatest strength. Can we use this? I think so, ma'am. If we can get more Marines aboard these bioships, we might be able to cause a chain reaction through their entire fleet. Do it, Sarah ordered. All ships prepare boarding parties. We're going to introduce these aliens to the human experience. Across the battlefield, human assault ships attach themselves to wounded biovessels, like antibodies attacking an infection. Marines poured into the organic corridors, their chaotic human thoughts spreading through the bio-neural networks like a plague. The Vorthak Overmind, controlling the invasion fleet from its fortress world light years away, felt the disturbance ripple through its consciousness. For the first time in eons, it experienced something it had never known before: fear. What were these creatures that thought like no other species? How could they function without unity? How could they be stopped when they turned disorder itself into a weapon? The Overmind began to understand that it faced something unprecedented in its million-year conquest of the galaxy. These humans were not just another species to be consumed. They were something entirely new, beings whose very thoughts were chaos, whose minds were storms, whose consciousness was a weapon that could destroy the order of the hive. For the first time since the Vorthak Empire began, the Overmind considered the possibility of retreat. Dr. Cathara had never expected to see another sunrise, but she found herself watching one through the viewport of the human medical ship UES Mercy. The star was different from her homeworld. Sun, smaller and more yellow, but the light felt warm on her feathers. She was alive, rescued from the ruins of her research station by human Marines who had risked their lives for complete strangers. "How do you feel?" asked Dr. Sarah Martinez, the human physician who had been treating her injuries. The woman's face showed genuine concern, something Cathara found remarkable. These beings barely knew her species existed, yet they cared about her well-being. "Better," Cathara replied, testing her newly healed wing. "Your medical technology is impressive." The bone was completely shattered, but now it feels stronger than before. "We've had a lot of practice fixing broken bones," Dr. Martinez said with a sad smile. "Earth is not a gentle place. We learned to heal quickly because we got hurt often." Through the viewport, Cathara could see the aftermath of the Great Battle. The human fleet was spread across the system, their ships helping to evacuate survivors from the dying worlds. Zilani refugees filled the cargo holds of human vessels, and engineers from both species worked together to repair damaged ships. "Dr. Cathara," came a voice from the ship's communication system. "This is Admiral Chen. Could you join me on the bridge? We need your expertise." Cathara made her way through the ship's corridors, still amazed by human design. Everything was built for efficiency and durability, with thick armor plating and emergency systems everywhere. These people expected their ships to be damaged in battle and had prepared accordingly. On the bridge, she found Admiral Chen studying a holographic display that showed the entire Vorthak Empire. The map was terrifying. Thousands of star systems marked in red, each one representing a conquered world. "Doctor, we've learned something important from the bioships we captured," Admiral Chen said. "The Vorthak Empire is controlled by a single entity called the Overmind. It's located in this system about 300 light-years from here." "You want to attack their homeworld?" Cathara asked in amazement. "Admiral, the Overmind has been growing for millions of years. Its bioships number in the millions. Even with your remarkable abilities, such an attack would be suicide." "Maybe," Admiral Chen agreed, "but we've discovered that their greatest strength is also their weakness. The hive mind gives them perfect coordination, but it also makes them vulnerable. If we can reach the Overmind itself, you could destroy the entire empire." Cathara finished understanding the plan. "But the defenses around their homeworld, no fleet has ever broken through." "No fleet like ours has ever tried," Captain Torres interjected from his position at the tactical station. "We've proven that human thoughts can disrupt their neural networks. If we can get close enough to the Overmind." Cathara studied the humans around her. They were planning to risk everything for people they had just met. Their own world was safe, light years away from the conflict. They could simply return home and forget about the Vorthak Empire. Instead, they were preparing to face an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why would you do this for us?" Admiral Chen looked surprised by the question. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because we can't let bullies win, because—" She paused, searching for words. "Because that's what humans do. When someone asks for help, we help them." Over the following weeks, the greatest alliance in galactic history began to form. Survivors from dozens of conquered species made their way to the Zilani system, bringing with them knowledge and technology that the Vorthak had never encountered. The insectoid klaxon provided advanced shield generators. The crystal-based shard contributed computing systems. The gaseous zephyrs shared their expertise in faster-than-light communication. But it was the combination of human military doctrine and Zelani scientific knowledge that proved most powerful. Human engineers studied Zelani energy weapons and found ways to make them more destructive. Zelani scientists examined human armor and improved its protective capabilities. Together, they created hybrid technologies that neither species could have developed alone. The new plasma torpedoes are ready for testing, reported Commander Park from the weapons lab. By combining human explosive technology with Zelani energy focusing, we've increased destructive power by 300%. Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. What about the bioneural disruptors? Dr. Kithara has been working with our neuroscientists, Park continued. They've found a way to amplify human thought patterns and broadcast them through our communication arrays. If we can get close enough to enemy bioships, we can cause massive neural feedback. The final fleet that assembled for the assault on the Overmind was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside Zelani science vessels. Marine assault ships carried mixed crews of humans and aliens. Fighter squadrons included pilots from a dozen different species, all trained in human combat tactics. Fleet status report, Admiral Chen requested as they prepared to jump to the Vorthak homeworld. 200 ships ready for departure, reported her communications officer. All vessels report ready for combat. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we finish what the Vorthak started. They thought they could consume the galaxy without consequences. They thought no one would stand against them. They were wrong. She looked around the bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. We're not just fighting for our own species anymore. We're fighting for the idea that the strong should protect the weak, that bullies should face consequences, that good people should stand together against evil. The fleet jumped to FTL speed, racing toward the heart of the Vorthak Empire. They found the homeworld surrounded by a defense grid that beggared description, millions of bioships orbiting a planet-sized organism that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. The battle that followed would be remembered for 10,000 years. Human ships designed for war on a death world smashed through bioship formations that had never known defeat. Zelani science vessels used their advanced sensors to target the neural nodes that controlled entire enemy fleets. Mixed crews fought with a coordination that the hive mind could not understand or counter. In the climactic moments, Commander Elena Vasquez piloted her damaged fighter directly into the Overmind's neural core. Her ship's bio-neural disruptor, amplified by her own chaotic human thoughts, sent a feedback pulse through the entire network. The Overmind's death scream echoed across the galaxy as its consciousness shattered into a billion fragments. Every bioship convulsed and died. Every drone collapsed as the intelligence that controlled them vanished forever. The Vorthak Empire, which had seemed unstoppable for millions of years, ended in a single moment of human sacrifice and alien cooperation. 6 months later, Dr. Kethara stood in Central Park on Earth, watching human children play, while their parents tended to Zelani saplings that had been planted as symbols of friendship. The crystal trees grew well in Earth's soil, their silver leaves catching the yellow sunlight. "Your species terrifies me," she told Admiral Chen, who had come to visit the memorial garden. "But I'm glad you're terrifying for us, not against us." Admiral Chen smiled. "We're not terrifying, Doctor. We're just stubborn. Earth taught us never to give up, never to abandon our friends, and never to let bullies win." Above them, ships from a dozen species moved through Earth's orbital space, bringing trade and knowledge from across the galaxy. The Terran Galactic Alliance was growing stronger every day, with humanity as its protectors and the other species as its teachers. In the depths of space, other hostile forces watched and learned. The galaxy had changed. The Deathworlders were awake, they had friends, and they were very, very protective of them.